Welcome to Overnight Market Brief, pre-market edition by AGI Era. Good morning. Today is Friday, January 23, 2026, and it is shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern Time. This is your executive summary of global market developments, analyzing the overnight flows in Asia and Europe, the key macro drivers, and the setup for the North American Open. The prior session and macro context. First, a look back at yesterday's close. Wall Street finished firmly in risk-on mode, supported by a weaker dollar. The S&P 500 settled at 69.13, up 0.55%, while the Nasdaq 100 advanced 0.76% to close at 25,518. Crucially, the session was driven by a softening U.S. dollar, but the real story right now is in the macro assets. Right now, the 10-year Treasury yield is trading at 4.232, marginally lower by 0.38%. The U.S. dollar index is marginally lower at 98.105, while crude oil is higher around 60.45. The slight dip in the 10-year Treasury yield provided a supportive tailwind for growth-oriented equities in the prior session, while the continued weakness in the U.S. dollar index contributed to broader risk appetite. Crude oil's advance suggests underlying demand optimism. Overnight session. Asia and Europe. Moving to the overnight session, global markets have been largely positive, albeit with some regional nuances. In Asia, the picture was unified. In Tokyo, the Nikkei 225 finished higher by 0.29%, tracking broader regional sentiment. Meanwhile, in Greater China, the Hang Seng advanced 0.45%, while the Shanghai Composite gained 0.33%. The positive equity performance in Greater China occurred despite news of foreign direct investment in China sliding 9.5% in 2025, suggesting local market dynamics and a weaker dollar provided a stronger impetus. In Europe, major indices are trading with a mixed to positive tone. The UK private sector activity hit a 21-month high, and German business activity growth accelerated in January, while French private sector activity unexpectedly contracted. This mixed but generally positive PMI data provides a cautious lead-in for U.S. traders. U.S. futures and the open. Turning to the U.S. pre-market, equity futures are marginally lower. S&P 500 futures are trading marginally lower by 0.05%, while Nasdaq 100 futures are marginally lower by 0.11%. The relatively flat performance suggests technical consolidation and positioning ahead of the North American Open, with no significant macro shifts driving directional conviction in early trading. The daily catalyst. Looking ahead to the session, investors are focused on three key catalysts. First, the overall strength in European PMI data, particularly in the UK and Germany, provides a positive sentiment backdrop for global growth. Second, the ongoing narrative of a weaker dollar, as highlighted in the market news, continues to influence global flows and asset allocation. And finally, the nuanced economic picture from China, with positive equity performance despite a significant slide in foreign direct investment, will be closely watched for its implications on global demand. Given the overnight setup in rates and the dollar, the market's path of least resistance appears to be range-bound, pending any surprises from the data releases. That concludes your overnight market brief. Disclaimer: this podcast is not financial advice. Data may be delayed or inaccurate. Always conduct your own due diligence.